Council election forum. I am Jim Crummell, the editor of the Lima News, and with me today are David Trink, our managing editor, and Craig Kelly, our reporter, political reporter. Craig Oraz, our photographer. This forum is more of a conversation about the views you would bring to council. It is being streamed live on our website, limeohio.com, and it will remain there throughout the election. We also will be publishing a story in tomorrow's newspaper. We will be asking questions, but you're free to ask each other questions also. We have a lot of ground to cover in an hour, so my apologies in advance if I cut you off and say we need to move on to another subject. We'll leave the final 5 to 10 minutes open for closing arguments from each of you. With that, let's start. And I thought I'd start off with a current issue. As a counselor, I'd like to know what's going through your mind when you hear about 2 Lima police officers allegedly using excessive force against a pregnant woman. There's been calls for a special investigation. There's been concerns about body cameras taking too long to purchase them, and there's been questions about why the officers will remain on duty. You know, what's going through your mind when you hear all this, Ann?
Well, the first thing that concerns me, of course, is the video, which I did not look at, but I've heard many things about it. The force against a pregnant woman is a concern to me. You know, her well-being and also her unborn child's well-being here. What I would like to find out is the actual facts. What happened? What led up to this particular incident? What caused the Lima police officer to use force on this female? And so those are things. I really don't operate unless I know the facts. There's many things that are happening or being said on Facebook here, and I want to know exactly what's going on. I've sent an email to Chief Martin and to Mayor Berger saying, let's make this quick. Let's not delay it, the investigation. People are wondering what caused this to happen. Most of the sympathy, of course, is for the female, the pregnant woman here, but I also want the community to know, I mean, there is never any excuse for using force on a female, especially a pregnant female. But again, you know, I want this investigation to be quick here. You know, we all go back to the incident that happened many years ago with Tarika Wilson, where the communication to the public was delayed. And I don't want the same sense of mistrust to exist in this investigation. It has to be quick. And it has to be something that, you know, we need to be able to tell the community exactly what happened.
Do you feel there should be a special investigator brought in, or the Lima police typically handle instances like this themselves? That's their procedure.
At this point, no. For me, I trust the Lima Police Department. I trust Chief Martin that he will do what is right. When the information comes out, based on what is said and what is done, you know, that may warrant, you know, independent investigation. But for right now, I'm going to trust, you know, Chief Martin to do what he knows is the right thing to do.
I do agree with Ann on that issue that something needs to be done expediently. I did watch the video, and the video doesn't start with the video part of it until after the woman's on the ground. I don't know what led up to that issue, what they actually confronted her about, what her reactions to that confrontation were. Was she battling? Was she resisting arrest? So I can't answer those questions until those issues come out. As Ann said, there is a lot of stuff floating around on Facebook, and the reaction to that from the general public that is an outrage, and the police have to do their job. If she was resisting arrest, if she was asked to do certain things and not complying with those things, the officers have the right to use force, not saying that it was excessive. I don't know that as to what the situation was. They were investigating the clothing. I don't know if there were drugs that were involved, if there was a weapon that was involved. None of that has come out yet. So I can't really comment to the use of force when all the everything's not out there yet.
Let's talk a little bit about CDBG funds. That's also been an issue that's come up here in the last few months. Let's start with you, John. Do you think we're using our CDBG funds wisely?
Based on the reports I've seen, I do not feel that the amount of CDBG funds are being appropriated correctly. Upwards of 20% currently are being used for administrative salaries. Those are funds that we receive as the city to fund programs in the city. I understand there's staffing issues and those type of things, but we also have a massive carryover, somewhere in the neighborhood between $8 and $9 million. That those monies could be used to fund additional police protection, to fund programs that with the drug issue and approach the drug epidemic in this city.
Yeah.
I believe the money is being used properly. The CDBG funds has been reduced greatly over the years, and according to what the reports are saying, that it will be reduced even greater going forward here. So the different things that is being used for that money is for our city, is for the areas in our city that I think need the help here. We have money being used to help fund manufacturing individuals being able to find jobs. We have money being used for the health and well-being of our young people in this community. And those are the things that are being used effectively, you know, for the benefit of our community that otherwise would not be available. The money that is being spent for administration is rightly done as according to the CDBG ability to be able to use those funds for administrative. As most of you know, anytime you have grant funding or whatever, there needs to be some guidelines that are put in place that have to be followed. And so this additional, the money that used for administration, I believe is being used wisely to fund the administration, for them to be able to follow the guidelines that we are to follow as far as the proper records being kept, to make sure that what the money is being spent for is properly used, you know, for that purpose only. And so again, I have no problem with that administration using that for that reason. The 20% is the limit, and you know, within the years we have not really used the full 20% here, but that is available for administrative use for running the program, for making sure the guidelines are met here, and I think that is being wisely used.
Let's talk a little bit about housing inside of your ward. What do you see as some of the issues that you'd like to see addressed with housing in the city?
In my area, the housing is getting pretty old here. You have some residents that have been in their homes for 40 to 50 years, and many of the residents are older. Some of them are widows that live by themselves, and they've raised their families there, and now they're living by themselves, and they have no desire to move outside of Lima. And so, but their concern is the homes around them that are deteriorating, the homes that are vacant, the homes that they believe drug activity is taking place. And I see that is probably one of my biggest calls from the residents, is they're concerned about deteriorating properties around them. I have a woman that called me last year. She's been in her home for 50 years, and she has a beautiful home. I sat in her home and talked with her, and she talked about the times when the parents walked their kids to school, at that time it was Horse Man, and how the neighborhood is starting to deteriorate. But right beside her home is a home that, I did not imagine it looking the way it did until I went to her home to look at it. And the home next to her, and it's really close to her home, and it's deteriorating badly, you know. Parts are falling off the home and hitting her home. And so she said that she's been working with code enforcement for 2 years and have not gotten any results. And so I immediately, you know, started to battle for her. sit in her home and hear what she had to say. And I approached administration about what can we do to get this home on the land bank. And, it's taken a long time, but 2 weeks ago, I got a call from Rachel Gilroy saying, Ann, we're going to take that house down, this week sometime, this week here. And, it gives me great joy to know that I worked along with this resident to keep her in Lima, because she did not want to move. Keep her in Lima, and now that house next door to her, she has agreed to purchase it for $200 once it's down here. But those are the things that I hear from my constituents. They are concerned about, the property around them, and they have a desire to remain in Lima and not have to move because of a deteriorating neighborhood.
I do agree that our ward is aging, much to the contrary of what Ms. Miles just said. I have personal experience with a house on a main thoroughfare in the city of Lima, Cable Road, that worked with Ms. Miles, worked with the city on a deplorable, uninhabitable home. And after being approached by the city and Ms. Miles to get this property on the land bank, get it constructed, was promised by the administration that this house would be taken care of. And when approached by the city to purchase that property, the property owner next door said, I don't want that property. I want the house taken care of. I'm 75 years old. I don't want the additional headache of taxes. I don't want the additional property maintenance, but I want the house down. Immediately was told at that point that it was going to be put on the, before that was told it was going to be put on the land bank. And as soon as they declined to purchase that property, was told there's no money to tear it down, and that's the end of it. So, I can sympathize with the landowners. There are deteriorating properties. There is this initiative going on right now that no one really knows all the details on yet. Proposed legislation on the landlord issue. There needs to be something done. These homes are going to eventually, I've seen it in the Westgate area where I lived, that there are people that as they pass away, their spouses can't take care of the properties, and then they pass away, their children don't want the homes, but they end up renting the homes. They're absentee landlords, and the properties are deteriorating. So something needs to be done. I don't agree with the current legislation or the current proposed legislation in that I think it's too restrictive. Something needs to be done, but we need to go through that proposed legislation, which I was at the meeting last night at the landlord-tenant meeting, and they kind of set it aside to a sub-council to, with 3 for and 3 against the issue, to work on that issue and come up with some type of registration system so that these people that are landlords can be held accountable. I don't think it's right to hold accountable the current landlords that are maintaining their properties to the same standard as the absentee. I mean, not the same standard, also to the same standard, but I believe, especially in our ward, the absentee landlords are the ones that are the houses are in deplorable shape, are falling down and having issues with those.
And do you want to follow up on the registration issue?
I want to comment on his statement about the home that was on Cable Road. This home on Cable Road, in which I received a call, and this is Mr. Neeper's father. I received a call from him to saying that he wanted some help in trying to get the home next door to him either torn down or repaired by the current owner. And so I met with Mr. Neeper, the father, and on many occasions. I stopped by his house 2 or 3 times and we talked about what can be done. He told me his story, how he has talked with the city administration to no avail as far as getting the owner of the house next door, which is the house is in very poor condition, and it's on a thoroughfare too. It's on a cable road, very visible. So to me, and that meant even more that we need to either get the home repaired or to get it torn down. And so I worked with, again, there was 2 houses, the one I just mentioned and this home here on Cable Road. I met with city administration on several occasions. What can we do to help these individuals who have a desire to live in their home but want the home next door to them either torn down or repaired? And so I talked with administration, and after several months here, I got a call back saying that, okay, we can put both of these houses on the land bank. And so I went back and I communicated that to the lady that I just mentioned. Then I also went to Mr. Neeper and I said, Mr. Neeper, I have worked to get this house on the land bank. You have the opportunity to purchase this land after it's torn down for $200. He declined the offer. He said, I've done my own research and I found out that there is delinquent property taxes on this home, which would prevent me from purchasing this home. And I said, well, I've talked to administration and they said that it is okay for it to be on the land bank and all it needs is your consent. He declined my offer. And after that, I did not, I told him that if he was interested in the future or if he changed his mind to contact me, but everything was in place for that home to be put on the land bank here. And he said that no, for right now, he would not want to do that. So I left it up to him. But I did spend quite a bit of time with him, making sure his needs were met and meeting with him, sitting on his porch and talking to him about his concern. So I believe that they were addressed and the ball was put back in his court and he declined. As far as the registry, landlord, I am for it. Many cities have gone that way, and I think it is the way to go. Lima needs to, rise up to be able to do things, that makes the management of our city a little bit easier. The land bank registry would allow us as city to be able to know who is the owner of the various properties that are available. That information right now is not readily available, or it may have changed, and we don't know what it is when it comes to violations on particular properties. We have to search and find out who is the current owner. If we have this registry, it would allow us to have that information because it would be required to be updated yearly. So we would have up-to-date information. What I don't agree on is the financial burden that it will put on the landlords. In many cities here, I believe that $25 per unit is excessive, because you have a lot of landlords that have many properties. In many cities, in Indianapolis, in South Bend, in Nashville, they have a one-time charge. Nashville charges $10 for all properties as a registration fee. They can go into a database and they can register all of their properties at one time for $10. South Bend and Indianapolis have $5. No matter how many properties you have, you can enter that information to the database. And so I believe that we should do something like that. There should be, no matter how many units you have, rental properties you have, there should be just a one-time and not a per unit cost. Also with the inspection fee, I think it's a little bit excessive. Even though the intent of that is to fund additional property maintenance individuals here, I believe we should reconsider that amount that is being charged, for the maintenance of these for the annual inspection fees. The landowners, can put this expense on their taxes. Schedule E is what is used to put in any expenses related to rental property. So, again, if whatever that fee is, it can be used as an expense of business on Schedule E. So, but I do think there should be a reasonable amount that is used for the inspection fee. Again, considering that many landowners have many properties here, and we want to make it, not a financial burden for them.
Just to rebut, yes, I've spoken with my father as early as last night concerning the issue with the home. I don't think it's the city's right to ask the landowner next door who has a beautiful property to come to them and say, we'll only put this property on the land bank and tear it down because, or if you buy the property. Number one, he has to pay taxes on it. Number two, he has to pay for the property itself. Number three, he has the upkeep on it. And I do agree that Ian did speak with him, but that's where it dropped, because he refused and did not wish to purchase that property. The blight stays on Cable Road. Why is that the landowner responsible for buying that property?
So what would be your scenario that should have happened in that case?
Tear the house down.
Tear the house down, and then who maintains it?
There are numerous areas in the city where they've tore houses down, that the property's there. It's a vacant lot. And a vacant lot looks a lot better than a blighted house. This house is falling down. You can drive past it today. It hasn't been inhabited in 5, 7, 8 years. The siding's falling off. The roof is caving in. When told to mow the lawn, it's cut. I mean, there's animals all over in the backyard. The sewer system is shot. My parents just replaced their sewer line, and the sewer line actually was collapsed behind this property. The property is in desperate need of being torn down. It couldn't be made inhabitable. But I don't feel that the city coming to my father saying, this is your problem, in the fact that if you don't purchase the property, we're not going to do anything about it. And that puts the problem back on the landowner. It's not his problem. He doesn't own that land. He doesn't want that property. He maintains his own property, does his own work, and for the city to tell him the only way they're going to do anything about it is if he purchases the property. Point blank.
Yeah, somebody still has to maintain the property. I mean, to Dave's point, who would maintain that? It's a vacant lot that it's got to be mowed. Who would do that?
That would be up to the city. I mean, if the city takes the property, but again, why is that my father's responsibility?
Right.
To call them continuously for code enforcement, who kind of negates the issue of, you know, the gentleman comes up and pays $50 on his back taxes, so they're not taking the house. And as I said, there are many other properties in the city of Lima that through the Allen County Land Bank, the city land bank, that they've taken, and those properties are still maintained. So to try to force his hand by telling him he has to take that property or they're going to do nothing about it is, in my estimation, ridiculous.
Let's talk about crime. Tell me about your perception of crime. Do you think it's been on the rise or has it been decreasing? I mean, what's...
Well, you know, records indicate that crime is down in the Lima area. Last year we had our record number of homicides, 8, which is never good for any community to see an increase. I think with the opiate epidemic, it has caused a lot of breaking and entering and theft. In the 7th Ward, I've had several residents tell me that they've had property taken off of their backyards. They've even had things taken out of their garage, you know, when the door was left open. And I believe all of these crimes of theft and break-ins and so forth is caused by individuals who are just looking for things to sell to support their habits. And as long as the opiate epidemic continues to increase in our community, I think we're going to see the associated crimes related to people trying to just support their habit. And so I've talked to residents about their concerns, and of course they've been reported to the police. But I've also told them, you know, the things that they need to do here as far as keeping their possessions. You know, once, you know, a lot of the older people live in the 7th Ward, and a lot of times they just forget to put their garage down. So always make sure at night, you know, just make sure your garage door is down. Anything that you have in your backyard, you know, make sure it's tied down, you know, so that it doesn't. I've had something stolen from our backyard. We had a plow stolen from our backyard, and so now we just chain things down to a tree or a pole here. But But crime overall is a concern. I'm just concerned about the black on black crime. It continues to escalate. And the other concern is some of the homicides that have occurred that there is still no one held accountable for. I mean, we have several over the years crimes that have been committed that because of maybe lack of information or even just lack of resources, they go unresolved. My heart goes out to these families of these loved ones who would like to see some type of closure on some of these murders here. So I would like to be able to see, more resources put in place to be able to tackle some of these unresolved homicides in our community.
I don't know where Ms. Miles is coming up with the decrease in crime. According to the FBI report that just came out last week, there is a drastic increase. Whether it be violent crimes, whether it be homicides, but I relate a lot of this to the drug problem. We need to get down to the brass tacks. We need to get the dealers off the streets. That's causing a lot of the issues. Again, Chief Martin reported after that report came out that the crimes are down, or some are down, some categories that are down. But again, that's his job. If he reports that they're down or says that they're down, although I don't believe it based on the report that came out from a credible source, but that is his job. So if they are up, that's his responsibility. So he, of course, will minimize those things. There are excess funds in the general fund, as I mentioned before, in the area of $8 to $9 million. There's no reason we're not spending these funds. As defined by the state auditor's office, a healthy carryover in a city of this size is 15%. We're harboring somewhere in the 23 to 25% range. There's no reason we're not increasing the police force. I'm not talking about a military state or a police state, but there are issues in this city that are not being addressed. Number one, police protection. In neighborhoods, why are we chaining things down in our yard when we have police protection? Why are we having problems with break-ins? The underlying problem goes back to, again, and I will agree with Ms. Miles, is I believe the drug issue. That people are using this to fund their habits. But the baseline issue is we've got to get the dealers off the streets. That is the main problem. If the supply is not here, the people can't use it.
How about pinpoint policing? There's been debate over whether that should be used. The police department likes the tactic. I mean, they focus on an area and hit it hard, but some people think that that's profiling. I mean, what's your thoughts about pinpoint policing?
Pinpoint policing has proven to be effective, but I also think it is intimidating. I think a lot of residents in the area in which there is being targeted feel like they're being picked on because of the excessive pullovers. My son, for instance, works third shift, so he gets off work here and he has to drive from Pepsi out on 4th Street here. He has repeatedly been pulled over, for driving that time of night, being black, and he's been pulled over. And once they see him, his uniform, Pepsi, as being a Pepsi driver, pretty much most of the time they let him go. But he has told me, he says, Mom, I'm just going to take a different route. He said, I am not going to go down Main Street anymore because I am forever getting pulled over. So those are the frustrations that I hear from residents, those who are minding their own business, those who are not up to anything bad or being stopped, and being inconvenienced, for no reason. So, I mean, to me, there's pluses and there's minuses with pinpoint policing. Yes, we, periodically get individuals pulled off that, that have outstanding warrants, that they're able to arrest them. But yet, on the other hand, you have citizens, that are abiding the law, those who are not involved in any criminal activity, or repeatedly being pulled over, and being, I hate to say harassed, but anytime you are asked to get out your car, you're asked to cannot search your car and those type of things here, it's an inconvenience, and it's humiliating to be able to have to do that. And so I have my, again, it has been effective, but yet I have my concerns about it in our community.
Do you think it's worth it then, based on that pro and con?
It's worth it to the standpoint that we're taking people off the street that have these outstanding warrants. But, I would almost have to see the figures to see how many of individuals have been pulled over in these pinpoint policing areas and have been found to have, violations versus the ones that are pulled over and they're let go. But again, that is my concern for those individuals who are pulled over repeatedly. Like my son, he travels the same route every night coming down 4th Street to Main Street to go home. And he has been stopped numerous occasions, and nothing's been found. You would think by now they recognize his car, but he just gets pulled over.
John, your thoughts on?
I see in the city of Lima that pinpoint policing has been effective, as Ms. Miles said. I don't know that I agree with it totally. Again, in connection with what Ms. Miles said, that it can lead to profiling, and I absolutely do not believe that's an appropriate response. I believe that we need to, and these officers that are pulling her son over, that I can't believe that they're not recognizing who it is, and that it's the same time every day, and if that's what the same route he's using. Not doubting what she's saying, I just can't believe that they're not recognizing that, and that to me is more on the area of profiling, not pinpoint policing. I believe it has been effective in getting some of the outstanding warrants off the books, and getting these people brought to justice that have been evading police. I think more of a community policing event or tactic would be to get more officers into areas so they know the people. And I think that's the issue that you're seeing with her son. If the police officers in that area knew who he was, they wouldn't be stopping him. And that's an issue that we need to get more police in certain areas, in the city that seem to be prone to drug activity, seem to be prone to violent crimes, so that they get to know the people, and that those people can trust those gentlemen as part of their own, or bring them in so that they can relate with those people. And in which case, when there is crime, that we can get some of the homicides off the books, because people aren't afraid to tell and talk to a friend versus a policeman that is just there to, and it will take care of some of the issue of, I believe, with police brutality, of officers that are coming in. The people know that they're there, what they're there for, and that they are part of their communities. Whether we offer tax incentives to officers that move into those areas so that they are their neighbors, that they know that they're there 24/7, whether they're on duty or not. And also, if I was a criminal, the last place I'd want to be is sitting next door to a policeman at home, knowing that the police presence is there. So it will drive some of that element away.
Any other questions on crime before?
You had mentioned community policing. Do you think it's working as it's structured right now? What tweaks would you like to see in it?
Well, I think back to the original issue, I think that we're completely undermanned. The numbers that Chief Martin has described, that he thinks we're on track, I don't think that's accurate. Obviously, the crime rate is up. So where are those crimes being committed? that's the issue.
Yeah.
The community policing, I believe, is being effective. The additional responsibilities that our community policing have now, that is building relationships with those around them. I think that's something that's new. I mean, if you're looking on Facebook, on the news, you're seeing a lot of community policing events that involve residents, that involve the neighborhood. I mean, they're having barbecues, they're passing out school supplies. I mean, they're doing things like that that traditionally we have not seen the community-oriented policing doing. And for that reason, I believe that we probably need about a half a dozen more, because they're not just doing police work. I mean, they're doing community relation building in our communities. And because of that extra responsibility, which I think is needed, because our community need to be able to trust our police officers, especially the ones that are in our neighborhood. And the only way that you can build trust is by, relating to them, having conversations with them, interacting with them. And so this additional responsibility, to me, puts a little bit extra work on the community-oriented policing, which is what they were supposed to do here. But they do more than just, police work. I mean, they're doing all those activities, that helps the residents in the community in which they're in to build trust and to be able to come to them. If I know that I'm comfortable with you and I know that that you are working on my behalf, it's a better opportunity for me to come to you when something's going on in that neighborhood, because I trust you, because I know that you care about the neighborhood. And so building those relationships is so essential if we're going to have our communities to work together to solve some of these crime issues.
One other thing too, speaking about some of the police numbers, minority recruitment for policing has also been a topic of conversation. What are your thoughts on some ways to approach that? There's been talk about changing the Civil Service Board rules in terms of Rule 10 versus maybe going to complete list rule. Is that maybe an option? Is there maybe some other ways of trying to attract more minority candidates to the police department? John, maybe you want to start with that.
As far as recruiting, I think that's a valuable asset. I think we need to do that as far as getting more of a minority presence on the police force, whether it be going to the schools and offering children to ride with the police, to get them involved with the police department, the police academy, whether it be scholarships for police to the police academy, to get more involvement, and that's going to get those children looking at alternative lifestyles, not going down the same road that maybe older brothers or older sisters, friends have gone down. And let's face it, with the drug epidemic that's going on here, the dealers are pushing these kids and getting these kids involved at a young age because the police aren't looking at those young kids basically being mules or pushing or carrying their product. So if we can get to them at a young age to show them these alternatives, and that has to come through the schools and workshops in the summer, those type of things, to get the youth involved so that's the path they choose. So yes, I do believe that we do need to get a more minority presence on the police force. That again will go back to that same trust issue.
Sure.
That minority presence in those wards that have an issue with crime, with drugs, can maybe identify with with the people in that area.
So in the meantime, with the investment in the youth and that kind of interim period, do you think the current rules in place in terms of evaluating potential candidates is a good idea?
I'm not real sure that the impact of the Rule of 10 is actually the Rule of 10. It used to be the Rule of 3. The way what I've seen the city has approached the Rule of 10 is that if we've got 3 positions to fill, the first position is filled in the top 10 spots, and that's the Rule of 10. But from what I've seen, that the Rule of 10 applies only to that first person. The second person can be picked out of the second 10, and the third person picked out of the third 10. So instead of the rule of 10, it becomes the rule of 30. We've got a drastic decrease in the amount of applicants, both minority as well as other applicants that we need to increase. There was a comment the other night at one of the debates between Mayor Cheney or Mayor Berger and his running with Mr. Cheney that number 19 was selected for one position. And come to find out that the civil service exam had been given and the person was picked, and it was pushed off until those top 10 were eliminated. So if we're not coming to grips with that, we need to do something when we take this, you have this exam so that these people are available in the top 10. Those people had taken other positions. So now we're down to number 19 as far as the position filled. That negates the entire rule of 10, whether Mayor Berger likes it or not. He says that the top 10 were gone. Well, if we wait a year to offer positions or to come to terms with one of those top 10, of course they're going to be gone. They've got other opportunities, other places. They're looking for other jobs, and they're not coming to or going to stay in Lima because they're elsewhere.
And your thoughts on that?
The desire for the African American or any minority to be a police officer in Lima is obviously not there. There has been various programs that have been set up to find applicants. The resource officers in the schools have programs in which they familiarize individuals at a young age, law enforcement opportunities, not just being a police officer, but other opportunities with law enforcement here. I think one of the hesitations is for the minority community is that 25% of this community is minorities, and many of us know each other. We're a close-knit community as far as everybody either know that individual, especially if you were born and raised in this community, families by their names, and so there's always that connection. And I think the hesitation is that many of these individuals do not want to be a police officer because they will be having to put themselves in a position where they've got to either arrest someone, a relative, or arrest someone that they've grown up with, and a lot of them don't want to be put in that predicament. I mean, that's what I've heard from several individuals here. And will that respect be there? Will you respect me as a police officer, just like you respected me as an individual, or would you try to, I hate to say this word, get over on me because I know you, we were raised up together, we went to school together. And so those are some of the factors that I've heard, and I just don't believe that we're going to get the candidates that we're seeking here for those reasons. And it's sad because I think we have some good individuals, male and female, that will be good police officers, but they're just a little hesitant of being given that type of position and having to really have to rule within their own city. But on the other hand, we have police officers that are coming into our community from smaller communities, and these individuals have no relationship with minorities or with the culture in Lima. Most of them are coming from rural areas. Most of them are coming from small towns, and their ability to deal with the culture, the individuals in our community, I think is a problem. They come in. Some of them come in with power. They come in and say, hey, okay, now I have this authority. I can rule over you as a minority or as an individual here. And I think sometimes that power gets overused, because of their position. And I just have a little hesitation about individuals coming in from these small cities, coming into Lima and not having the background to be able to deal with some of the incidents or some of the situations that they're going to encounter almost on a daily basis here in Lima.
So with minorities in Lima having hesitations about joining, and coupled with that, are there alternatives like going to some of the historically black colleges to try and recruit, or try and recruit from other other urban areas? What would you
Yes.
say would be some good alternatives to look at that?
I think we need to try to go outside of the city to recruit individuals to come, and that's been done. And we've had individuals that have come in from Dayton, Columbus, attempting to get positions here. I'm not sure what happened to those candidates here, but yeah, I think that would be a better fit for Lima to have someone to come in who have not been raised up in here, who do not know just about everybody, here in town. It would be a better fit. And then for these individuals coming in from these small towns here, I think, definitely sensitivity training is essential for them, to be sensitive to the minority culture, their ways, those type of things, which will help them deal with some of the incidents and the encounters that they have, almost would be on a daily basis with the community.
I agree about that.
Let's move on to economic development. Would you describe Lima as a business-friendly city?
No. One of the biggest issues, especially in Ward 7, is that we're a retail-based economy. Probably the most, or the biggest in the city of Lima, specifically the cable and downtown road areas. Much of this retail in this area has either moved or closed up because of the city in the last few years, or the last 10 or 12 years in decline. Through the non-responsive building and zoning departments, the hypervigilant income tax department, as well as hidden utility taxes. As a counselor, I would like to fight for the real creators of jobs in this community, the small business. We cannot continue to allow the city to vilify those who work and those who create work for others.
The city of Lima is working very hard to create a business friendly. Is it perfect? No, but we're trying to identify some things here. The economic development group is really working hard to make our city, ready for those opportunities when a company wants to locate here. And they're doing it by the way of manpower. I mean, they're trying to educate and get our manpower ready, for any future developments here. The different things that are being put in place here, I think probably the manpower is probably something that we need to work on. Many individuals are having a difficult time passing the drug test, of course. And that, anytime a business come, they're looking for individuals, and the first thing is the drug test. And that seems to be one of the stumbling blocks from getting, manpower to be able to be employed in these various companies here. And so, but I really believe that we're doing all that we can to kind of overcome that. There's a lot of programs in place. There are a lot of training that's being done to prepare our workforce for pending job opportunities. And I believe our city, the chamber and all those different ones are coming together, and they're working to make this city more business friendly here, so that we can get the opportunities that come. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that that is going to take time for us to get there, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
Kind of closer to the end, I'd like to talk a little bit about a councilman's role. How do you see yourself working with the mayor or the mayor-elect? I mean, Dave Berger has said in this campaign that there are people on council who frankly don't want to work with me. And how do you work with the?
I work well with the mayor. Whenever I have a situation that I need to talk to him about, I make an appointment with him, and I meet with him and I tell him my concerns, and even the things that I may not agree with him about, I express my concern, and sometimes, he may kind of change his mind. Sometimes he may, we may agree to disagree here, but I am not the type of person that will, in council chambers, try to front him or try to degrade him or anybody. That is not my style. If I have something that I do not like about anything thing that's being done whether it be with any administration, my thing is to go to them and we talk about it and we try to work it out. I tell them what my concerns are. I tell why I don't like the decision that's being made, and again, sometimes we may agree and sometimes we may not agree here, but and then I express that on the floor. I express, okay, I don't like this for this particular reason, and this is the way I'm going to vote here. But as far as working with the mayor and anyone in his administration, I have no problem. I have a working relationship with them, and it is not my thing to be confrontational. Respect. I am the type of person that I respect other people, and if there is something that we disagree on, I may express it in a respectful way, but further discussion will occur between us. To try to get that individual to kind of see my way of thinking. And again, it doesn't always work that way. But I'm going to give that opportunity to that individual to say, hey, what are you thinking? What am I missing here? But confrontational and making a scene in council, no, that would not be me. As an adult in this community, as leaders in this community, our young people and other people are looking at us here. And if we get in front of council, get in front of that camera, and we carry ourselves in a way that is disrespectful for our community and for each other, that is not going to help our community. There are people, businesses that are looking at us. They even look at our council meetings, to see how we get along with one another. Well, they look at us how we carry ourselves, what we say. And so that is crucial, when it comes to a business want to relocate. Why would I want to relocate to a city where there is constant conflict and, debate is good. I mean, I'm not saying we all should agree, but I say we should do it in a respectful manner. We should do it in a way that shows that we are men and women of integrity, and again, that respect for our young people. They are looking at us. We have to be a good example for our young people so that they will want to step in our shoes and do what we're doing. If there's constant conflict, bickering among each other, nah, that is not something. I'm staying away from that. I want no part of being a part of council.
In my past, or currently actually, with different organizations I've worked with, number one with the Ohio Funeral Directors, I've worked with many different administrations, and both Republican, Democrat, however the political arena swings as far as the governor is concerned, or the governorship. I do think we need a change in this administration. To quote Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Crime is on our rise. The drug use and abuse is on the rise. The poverty level is on the rise. Something needs to be done. Social media is outrageous right now with it makes me sick. I was born and raised here in Lima, and that's one of the reasons I got or in running for council is I love Lima. This is my home, and I hear the comments thrown around about Slima and things that are going wrong in Lima, the administration in Lima, and attitude reflects leadership, and that's where we're at. The leadership is passed. Much to the dismay of my running mate here, I have a real hard time believing, and I will not negate that healthy debate is necessary, but I have a hard time believing that your votes are not swayed one way or another. In the last 4 years, 100% of your track record has voted with the administration. That's dismal at best. My wife can attest to this. We can't agree on where to go to dinner most nights. We can't agree on, or we have disagreements on finances. In our home, we have disagreements on, how our property should look. We have disagreements on how to raise our daughter. And 100% of the time, you have voted with the administration. That's pure numbers. no consenting views, but 100% of the time, you have gone with and all of those things are happening. Crime being on the rise, drug use, and nothing's being done to approach those issues.
To close up, John, will you go first on the closing arguments? Closing statements, I guess, not arguments.
I would be proud to be elected as the 7th Ward councilperson and serve the citizens of this community by spending wisely, working with the administration, whoever that administration may be, to solve the issues of the city that are facing currently, as well as ones that will come up in the future. I will not be a yes man. I believe that research and education on both sides of an issue are first and foremost. Education is a huge thing right now that I don't think that a lot of the counselors are, or some of the counselors and some of the administration are viewing. They have their views. They don't wish to go on and investigate other options. This is what the procedure is going to be, and this is how our administration is going to run. My belief is that Lima needs to stop having competing factions and do what's best for the economic development and the future growth of Lima. We have averaged over $8 million in excess funds in the general fund. We also have the CDBG funds that are available to fund these programs and work on those serious issues, the drug issue, the policing issue that are confronting our city right now. We need to work with the minorities, work with the issues that are relevant at this date and time. In closing, I'd like to thank everyone that was associated with putting this debate on to allow me to express my opinions and kind of put my platform out there.
To the 7th Ward committee, ward, and for the community as a whole, today I just want to let the work that I've done in this community speak for me. I've been involved in this community for over 30 years in some form or fashion, 10 years on the school board, serving on various boards, now working as a city councilor. My heart is for this community. I was born and raised here as well. What happens in Lima matters to me. My opponent here, I have not seen him very much in the community. You know, I am not going to say anything bad about him, but I have not seen him in the community. This is his first time, you know, being visible in the community. And I commend him for wanting to be the next city councilor. But for me, let the work that I've done speak for me over the years. And I hope that the residents and the community as a whole will see that and see that I am the person that needs to remain in this seat as the next city council person.
Thank you for coming out this morning. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
That was a good discussion.